what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Rock's Garage. I'm your host, Dan, and on today's episode, we're going to be installing part number ACC-HTR10, which is our universal heat seeder kit. And we're going to be installing that on our EasyGo RXV. Now, before we get started, let's take a look at everything that comes in the kit and the tools and accessories we're going to need to perform the installation. So when you open up your kit, you're going to have your two heating elements. You're going to have a foam isolation pad, and that's going to go in between your heating elements and your seat cover. And you're also going to have your harness. Now, with the foam pad, depending on your kit, you might need to trim or cut that foam pad to fit over top of the heating element, but you want to make sure that it covers the heating element completely. So now we've taken a look at everything that comes in the kit, let's take a look at the tools we're going to need to perform the installation. First up, we have a cordless drill with a 3/4 inch hole saw or a 3/4 inch acorn bit like we are using here. We have a staple gun. We also have a ratchet wrench with a T45 Torx bit attachment. Next up, we have a staple remover tool, a Phillips head screwdriver, some needle nose pliers. We also have a set of wire strippers and crimpers, a tape measure, a utility knife, some kind of marking utensil, and of course, some safety glasses. So other than our tools, we do need a few other accessories to make the installation happen. Now, we're going to be replacing our seat cover fully, so I do have a seat cover here. Now, this is not 100% necessary, but we are going to be just completely removing the seat cover, and reinstalling the old one is a little bit difficult, so we are just going to use a new seat cover. We also have a can of spray adhesive, as well as a few electrical connections to make the harness fit better to the battery. And lastly, we have some extra staples. So now we've taken a look at everything that we need for the installation, we just want to go over a few safety precautions. Now, as always, we want to make sure that we turn our cart off, set our parking brake, and if we have an electric cart, we're going to flip the tow run switch to the tow position. Now, also because we are going to be working with the electrical system on the cart, we do want to make sure that we completely disconnect our battery or battery pack from the cart. Once we've completed all of our safety precautions, we're going to go ahead and take the seat bottom cushion completely off of the cart. Now that we have our seat cushion removed from the cart, we're going to go ahead and disassemble the seat cushion by removing our two handrails, as well as this protective covering and all of the staples. So now with my trim pieces removed from the seat cushion, we're going to go ahead and remove all of these staples around the outside of the cushion and pull the cover completely off. So now that we have our seat cover removed, we can go ahead and start placing our two heating elements. So we're going to go ahead and make a mark at 4 inches from the back of the seat cushion, and that is where the tongue of our heating element is going to land. Once we have that placement, we can go ahead and trace out the area that the heating element is going to sit in, and then we'll know where we need to spray our spray adhesive. So now with our 2 areas marked out, we're going to go ahead and add some spray adhesive inside these 2 areas. And then before we install the heating elements onto the cushion, we are going to remove the white backing from them so they stick a little bit better. So now with our 2 heating elements installed, we're going to go ahead and make some incisions in the foam so that we can pass the harness down through the foam so we can get into the battery compartment. So now before we pass our harness through the foam, we're going to go ahead and flip the foam over so that we can access the holes a little bit easier. So now with the harness passed through the foam, we can go ahead and flip it back over and then put the harness through some of the pre-drilled holes in the wood base. So now with our harnesses passed through our wood base, we're going to go ahead and flip our seat cushion over. And we're going to install our 2 foam pads over top of our heating elements. So now with our foam pads in place, we can go ahead and install our new seat cover. Now you do want to make sure that you have that seat cover in the proper orientation, because the last thing you want to do is get it all installed and then have to go take it off and put a new one on. So as you work your way around your cover, you want to make sure that you're pulling your cover tight before each staple or each couple staples. That way it'll keep the cover tight and looking nice. And when you're working your way around the leads for your heater elements, make sure that you don't put a staple through that, because that could end pretty badly. So now when you get to a corner, I like to take the corner piece and I'm going to fold it and make a nice seam, like so. And then you can staple the seam down and that'll hold the corner in place. So now that you have your new seat cover installed, just make sure that you double check the fitment of the cushion to make sure that it is on in the correct orientation and that there's no major wrinkles or anything in the side. If there are a few wrinkles in it, like we have a couple indentations here, those will stretch out over time, but you want to make sure that you have the correct orientation and that you don't have any major seams. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and flip the cushion back over and trim off any of the excess from the cushion. So now that you've gone ahead and trimmed your seat cover, you can go ahead and reinstall all of the parts that we took off earlier from the seat cushion, like your handles and your hinges. So now that we have our seat cushion reassembled, we're going to go ahead and jump back over to the cart and get the electrical system and the harness sorted out. So we're going to install the switch and plug up the harness before we put the seat cushion back onto the cart. So now that we're back over at the cart, our first step is to figure out where we're going to be installing our switch. So because we have a gas cart here, we do have an air filter in the way, so we need to avoid this when we're drilling our hole. So I'm going to shift a little bit to the right and install it right next to our shifter over here. So before we drill our hole, we do want to make sure that this clears the shifter. So I'm going to make sure that the shifter is in the forward position on my gas cart here, just to know that I can drill somewhere in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and drill right here because it's going to be parallel and even with the choke cable, so it'll look nice. So before I install the switch onto the cart, I'm going to disconnect these 3 wires, but I do want to make sure that I note the proper orientation for it. So with the seat in the upright position on the button, I am going to make sure that I have the black wire on top, the yellow wire in the middle, and the red wire on the bottom. So with our switch installed onto the cart, before we put our harness on, we need to install our new electrical connectors. So I'm actually going to chop this connector off here, and I'm going to install these new larger connectors so I can connect it to my battery. All right, so now that our connectors are on, let's go ahead and install our harness into the cart. So these 2 shorter leads are going to be the leads that go to the actual heating elements themselves. So I'm going to make sure that I leave these up towards the top and center of the cart. So I'm just going to drape those here. And then I'm going to make my connection to my switch right here. Just like that. You can hear it click into place. And then I'm going to take the battery connections for the harness and run it down underneath of the airbox, following all of the harnesses that are already installed onto the cart. And then I can go ahead and attach it to the battery. So I'm going to let the battery leads just kind of hang out right here for now while I get the rest of the harness situated, and I'm going to plug up the seat heating elements before I attach the leads to the battery. Now I can go ahead and grab my seat and install it on the cart. So with your seat installed on the cart, you can go ahead and attach your heating elements to the harness. You want to make sure that you secure your harness away from any moving parts that would interfere with the performance of the cart. Now, once our heating elements are attached, we can go ahead and reinstall our battery. So now that you have everything plugged up, we want to just make sure that everything functions properly on the kit. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and secure any of your loose wires away from any moving parts. So now that we've verified that everything works and we've secured our harness away from any moving parts, that's going to do it for the install for part number ACC-HTR10. Thanks for watching this episode of Rock's Garage. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.